Alright guys, here we go again with another of the Evolution Consulting market updates as we've so enjoyed doing now. It's a lot easier for me to do them these ways, or this way I should say, than it is for me to type these out. Alright, but it is the 25th of April 2016, and those of you that were very astute and were paying attention or read the note at the bottom of the most recent YouTube video, yes, the front slide or the first slide is incorrect. We did record that on the 23rd, not the 26th, as the first slide would suggest, but nonetheless, here we are on a 100 or so point down day. Seems fairly unexciting, but we did promise that we would bring you an update from a kind of a new sector, kind of a new old sector, we're going to call it, because we've already had one play in said sector, and it was actually largely successful. We knew we were going to get some upside movement. We just didn't think it was going to be that big and that dramatic, and believe it or not, that fast. We definitely had it as a 30, 60, 90-day play kind of deal, and it certainly lived up to its name. And that is in the firearms sector. All right, and if you guys are paying attention or you went back and you took a look, this one happens to be in our Evolution 4.0 proven concepts or proven forecast section. Okay, but on the January 13th, we recommended Strum Ruger, which make a number of very popular firearms. If you guys are firearms enthusiasts, you're really going to enjoy this. Believe it or not, one of my first jobs that I ever had was for a now defunct sporting goods chain selling firearms. So I am a big believer in the Second Amendment and certainly the right to bear arms, but not to arm bears, as one might imagine. But we recommended Ruger. It was RGR in your New York Stock Exchange ticker. Okay, we recommended it on the 13th of March. That was in Wirehouse. We made that recommendation. On the 16th, we referenced the fact that we referenced it in Wirehouse on Twitter, and that's all time-stamped, and that's up in our proven forecast section. Okay, but we recommended it 5209. And then typical to one of our 30, 60, 90-day plays and why the trailing stop losses are so important, guys. The week of March 10th all the way through to about March 24th, okay, RGR was in the $72 to $75 range. So conservatively speaking, if you got it at the $70 range exactly from 5209, okay, you would have been 43.9% ROI in a little less than 90 days. We called it 40%. All right, because again, order execution, and usually you're not going to buy the very bottom and the very top, so we're realistic about that. Okay, but Strum Ruger did take a little bit of a dip after that, as the graphic on the screen will now show, from firearms regulatory pressure. Okay, however, a couple of things to keep in mind there. That is something we have been forecasting, guys. If you were listening to me during the test of concept phase prior to Evolution. In Evolution 4.0, okay, you'd have heard me kind of repeat a bit of information that we discovered. All right, and I just had a conversation yesterday over dinner with someone who's a firearms aficionado, and got talking about the popularity of different firearms, popularity of different calibers of firearms and stuff, and we got to talking. But one of the things that I talked about often when we were doing the test of concept, and even now I referenced it a few times in Wirehouse, which is our monthly publication, is from when we started doing public information stuff in 2014, we're talking September, October of 2014, firearm sales have kind of just done this fairly consistently. All right, and that goes hand in hand with a social concept, or a social engineering, we call it, social concept that we kind of observed from then until now, and it's what allowed us to make the Strum Ruger play as we did. Okay, and that is, despite all the firearms regulations, despite all the gun control stuff, and I know Second Amendment guys are going to be watching this, they're going to say, well, there's just so many different kind of regulations out there. At the end of the day, I had a conversation with someone, and again, I asked the question, and I've asked this question of a number of people. I said, is there anything in terms of contemporary firearms, your ARs, your AKs, your SKS, your even some of the newer stuff, like the carbine caliber stuff, the carbine variants of the AR, and the carbine variants of a lot of the HK, Heckler & Koch type stuff, okay? Is there anything that you could have bought 10 years ago that, because of firearms regulations, you couldn't buy right now, okay? And he kind of looked at me and went, well, no. And that's exactly my point. a concept that we discovered, I mean, early on in the development stages of what is now Evolution 4.0 and Evolution Ultra, okay, is one of the things, kind of, it takes a minute to wrap your head around, but just kind of try your hardest, is all that gun control legislation really does is encourage people to go out and buy more guns. It really is that simple, because you have that Second Amendment crowd, okay, that every single time a piece of legislation is passed, every single time there's a mass shooting, every single time there's call for more gun control legislation, guys, what's the first thing they do? They run out and they buy up more ammo. They run out and they buy up, more ARs, more AKs, more SKSs, because there's always that looming threat of gun control legislation saying, well, you're not allowed to buy this type of rifle anymore. You're not allowed to buy this type of pistol anymore. Okay, so the side effect that we discovered real quick was the combination of news events. You're shooting at the Bataclan, you're shooting at San Diego, and I mean, there's a million other ones, right? But at the end of the day, every time one of those events happens, okay, invariably it's either an AR or an AK. It never fails, right? What'll happen is you'll have your talking heads hop up on TV, your politicians say, we need to ban guns and we need gun-free zones and all that fun stuff. And what that is, the words are coming out, but what Second Amendment aficionados and those that are of the Second Amendment ilk, all they're hearing is go out and buy more guns because we might not be able to purchase a specific variant or an accessory, 30-round magazines, for instance. Okay, that's been going on for years and years and years. I mean, it's been 10, 15 years, guys. That's before I even got into technology, which is still a part-time job that I had a hell of a lot of fun there. But I remember the 30-round magazine being the thing. They're going to ban 30-round magazine. In some places they may have, but at the end of the day, if you really want one, guys, you can get one. Okay, you can get a whole bunch of them. You can go to any gun show in the United States, and I'm sure there's more than one person there selling 30-round banana clips for your AK and 30-round stick mags for your either carbine or 223 variant or any other the millions of variants now that are out there for the AR series. Okay, so what we figured out real quick is when we were doing some of the alt news and the fringe news type stuff, and I mean, come on, guys, talk about walking right into it, right? They're all very big on the Second Amendment, and rightfully so. I don't, certainly fault anybody for that. But I tried explaining that concept, and it was like, for the most part, I think some people understood it. But all this gun control legislation is doing, guys, is encouraging people to go out and buy more firearms. Now, if you don't believe me, that's fine. However, December of 2015. Okay, December 2015, they were set a yearly record for what's called NICS background checks. Now, when I was selling firearms, okay, it was a little yellow form. You filled it out. It's 2 pages, and then me or somebody that worked with me would go behind the to the telephone and call up, and they would get either an approval, a 3-day wait and then release, or an outright no. An approval meant cash and carry. Have a nice day. Here's your rifle, your shotgun, or we didn't sell pistols, but here's your long gun. Go enjoy. Have a nice day. Don't forget the ammo. A 3-day wait usually meant exactly what it sounded like. It was either they didn't have enough information, okay, or there was just for whatever reason they gave you that there was going to be a 3-day wait, and then you can come pick it up, okay, no big deal. Or you got an outright no, okay, and to get an outright no, I'm pretty sure you have to be a real lunatic to get an outright no, or you have to have a very interesting background to get an outright no, okay. I did it for I was in that job for about a year and a half, guys, and I only saw 1 or 2 people really just get straight out decline. The rest was either 3-day wait and see, or it was, here's your shotgun, here's your rifle, have a nice day, have fun. Okay, but December of 2015, 3,314,594, excuse me, were the number of background checks. That is a record. Okay, since they started using the NICS systems and keeping records, okay, since 1998. All right, so 3,314,594 on Black Friday. By the way, one of the most popular holiday gifts this year. We I don't want to say we directly predicted it, but we predicted that trend of that happening. Okay, Black Friday was 185,343. just on Black Friday alone. That was up from the 175,000 of 2014. It's about a 5% increase, okay? So the demand is going up, and that was reflected in not only the stock price of Strum Ruger, okay, which was, hey, another 40%er. Like I said, we're getting used to this, okay? We can do this all day, every day for fun, as we like to say. And again, that's not arrogance, guys. That's just what we built here has been, I want to say, frighteningly accurate at this point. Even I have to kind of step back now and go, I don't know what we built, but man, has it taken on a mind of its own, and man, is it awesome. So, that being said, Strum Ruger, okay, was only one example. Now, recently, we had, again, pending conversation I had last night, kind of went hand in hand with some of the research that we've been doing, okay, for a social engineering perspective. We have a little bit of time at the end of this. I'll explain it more, but let's talk about something that matters, guys, like SWHC, which is Smith Wesson. That's Smith Wesson Holding Corp. Okay, unless you've been living, in a cave or under a rock for the last, 100-odd years, you'll realize that Smith & Wesson is one of the more popular firearms manufacturers, particularly in the pistol class, all right, not so much the rifle class. That's dominated by other manufacturers. But at current check, which is today, all right, we're talking about $22, just about. It's a couple of pennies above $22 a share, all right. That demand is going to continue for firearms right up into the global economic reset, because there's going to be more legislation. There's going to be more talk of legislation. If there's even a sniff that Hillary is going to win the election, which we don't forecast her to do, okay, but if there's a sniff that she's going to win, or even worse, if there's a sniff that Sanders is going to win, people are going to run out and they're going to stock up like it's the freaking Alamo, and that's going to be reflected in these share prices. We've discovered a fairly direct fundamental correlation, between the share prices and the demand for the product. Hey, imagine that. Look at that. We found another fundamental play that also has the news story behind it, because it's an easy story to tell, okay? And it's got the fundamentals behind it. So it's like a real trade and stuff, like it's economics, like really working. But at the $22 level, guys, if you want to put a 2150 buy order in that to see if you can buy the absolute tippity bottom of it, you're more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, current levels, guys, $22 a share. That demand just doesn't suddenly peter off, okay? If there's a sniff that we're going to have another Democrat in office, you watch what happens, especially, believe it or not, Hillary is one thing. If there's, not that I really forecast, or not that anybody really forecasted happening, not that Evolution 4.0 forecasted happening, but if there's even a sniff, okay, that there's going to be a Democrat in office, you watch, it's going to happen again. Even still, we have the other news stories that are going on. You're talking about what? You have your Europe being flooded by Muslims, and you have the United States. That tension's been built up to the point now where it's getting completely ridiculous. And you see the result is people are going out and buying more firearms in the wakes of those shooting events, in the wakes of those so-called Muslim terror events, right? And it's all that stuff does. It's just like the firearms legislation. Every time there's one of these events, or anytime a politician wants to make a couple of minutes of news, what they're going to do is they're going to stand up and they jump up and down. They go, we need to ban more, we need to ban guns, we need to ban firearms, we need a gun-free zone, this, that, or the other thing. At the end of the day, there is nothing that you could have bought 10 years ago. If you really want, with the exception of select fire weapons, that means, there's a switch, guys. It's pew, 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 and no pew. I've actually seen that written on the side of an AR-15, which means one round semi-automatic, which is like what you can buy in pretty much any, gun store. It just means as fast as you can pull the trigger, you're discharging, you're putting rounds down range. You can get a 3-round burst, but that's only if you're military or police, and you can have full auto, which is for military and police only. But most of those weapons, AR-15s, AK-47s and variants and the Chicom and the Romanian and all the different versions of the Kalashnikov, the AK-47, okay, you can pretty much have the same variants that are used by special forces with the exception of select fires if you've got the money and you want to buy the accessories for it, okay? It's really that simple. Speaking of, interestingly enough, this is something I wanted to add to this. And the reason we pick Smith & Wesson is because of, not because it's our favorite as far as an equity goes, but it's one of the only available that you can purchase on a publicly traded exchange, guys. I'm going to read off a list of companies right here, and they all have something in common. Remington, Browning, Springfield, Bushmaster, Heckler & Koch, Beretta, Marlin, and Para. Those are all very popular brands, especially, obviously, Remington, Browning, Springfield. Bushmaster is one of the largest manufacturers or producers of the AR-15, along with Armalite, amongst others. But all those companies have something in common. They're all privately held. Okay, you can't buy shares in them. So we went kind of fished around looking for a buyable, affordable, kind of at that plateau low level. I mean, you saw some of the equity, especially Ruger, right after the 324, some of the firearms regulations, the rumors thereof made the stock do this. And I was laughing. I was going to say, that's just going to do nothing but increase demand. So if you guys want to pick it up at current levels, okay, I haven't looked to see what I looked what it is, but I don't know the exact number off the top of my head while I'm recording this. So I'm not going to say anything. But current levels, guys, that's another buy-in. If you missed it the first time, if you missed the first trade go-around, there's got another leg up. Firearms demand, based upon our forecast, it's not declining anytime soon. Okay, especially again if there's the sniff that there's going to be a Democrat, and obviously you watch how quick that demand goes up. All right, it happened before Obama's administration as well. That being said, SWHC, Smith Wesson Holding Corp. Guys, that is definitely a 30, 60, 90-day play, okay? Those aren't going to move. Those aren't like the ETFs, okay, that are going to move big time, especially the 3X leverage stuff with something as simple as spot price of metals. This does require a little bit of fundamental economics of actual supply and demand and seeing the increase in supply and then obviously the increased output. So that's a nice 30, 60, 90-day play. Strum Ruger worked for us very well, so we're thinking Smith and Wesson, especially current levels. I mean, it's just even if you look at the chart, and at least I'm not big on technical analysis. Mr. Serrani, our technical analyst, he's big on that stuff, but you can just see the chart made a real nice bottom. So that being said, one of the reasons, guys, real quick, I try to keep these to 15 minutes, but one of the reasons that we've mentioned that, and again, having done a year and a half, guys, in the alt news community, you hear every 2 seconds it's going to be, the government's going to take away guns. The government's going to take away guns. They're going to confiscate guns. It's going to be like Germany 1936. Everybody's going to get their guns confiscated. No, they're not. Did it ever occur to anybody that it might be, when I talk about social engineering, if you follow on Twitter every once in a while, you'll see me mention social engineering. Okay. Did it ever occur to anybody that maybe part of the plan is like, sell as many guns, get as many guns into circulation as possible, and then collapse the dollar and just let all the idiots kill each other? That's what I would do. Okay. Honestly, really, if you stop and you think about it, it's like, if they really wanted to ban certain types of firearms, they really wanted to ban certain types of firearms accessories. Again, referencing a 30-round magazine, for instance. Okay, they would, but they don't. They want to give the illusion that they're going to so that you go out and buy more of them. Because at the end of the day, guys, how do you cleanse the country? I kind of joke around again. I joke around a little bit. I say, maybe code for, Make America Great is code for, problem is we have too many people. Okay, and certainly we don't often talk about it anymore. We did a lot during our test of concept phase. But guys, when we talk about the U.S. dollar collapse and the devaluation of the dollar by 70%, okay, we talk about it from a purely economics perspective now because I'm just done wasting my time trying to so-called wake people up to what's going on. So I figured it'd be a lot easier for us all just to make a buck off of it. But during my time in the alt news community, okay, I tried to kind of describe it. I said there's going to be I talked about, I should say, there's going to be serious social ramifications when a U.S. dollar collapses. We've had previews of it with Katrina. You've had previews of it with Ferguson. You've had previews of it in Chicago, which I heard somebody recently referred to as Chirac, which is friggin' hilarious. If true, but it's hilarious. All right, so you've seen kind of previews of just how thin the fabric is that holds society together. Okay, and I think that's another thing that's driving, your Smith & Wesson sales and your Strum Ruger sales, okay? But you talk about a dollar devaluation to 70%. All right, there's others out there that have spoken about the potential, what the death toll numbers might look like, whatever. We have our own figures here that we don't talk about it anymore. But for the purposes of it being relevant to this particular equity trade, okay, there will be some serious social consequences, and there will be serious social ramifications for the collapse of the U.S. dollar. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Again, we've seen the previews. You've seen how thin the fabric can be. Sometimes it holds the civility of the United States and other nations together. But that is one of the things that makes the United States very unique, guys, is just the sheer amount of firearms in circulation, the amount of firearms per people or per person in the United States, okay? Which is why we've often talked about expatriation, all right? And I've told my assistant, amongst others, that on Evolution, or on Team Evolution, I said, we're not going to be in the United States when that happens, okay, because we kind of have a fairly grim picture of what it's going to look like, when inevitably that does happen, be that in Q3, Q4 2017, or, Q1, Q2 2018, all right, it's, like we said, anything after Q3, Q4 2017, I mean, it's just borrowed time at that point for the U.S. dollar. But that being said, guys, this was a 20-minute one. Our apologies for making it so long, but again, we try to get as much information into these as possible. Hope you like them. If you do, there's a little thumbs up button down there on YouTube, or you can like, you can comment at Evo_consultants, EVO consultants, if you want to follow us on Twitter, guys. We hope you're enjoying these. We hope you're making some money along with us here. So, again, we thank you very much, guys. Be good.